Breaking. Westminster has just exploded. Keir Starmer's secret Brexit deal didn't just leak. It detonated in front of a packed Parliament. What was supposed to be a quiet victory turned into a political inferno. Screaming MPs, stunned ministers, and a Prime Minister cornered by the very people who once defended him. The truth is out now. Starmer made a backroom deal with Brussels, and the fallout has already begun. Betrayal, rage, and rebellion are ripping through British politics like wildfire. This isn't just a scandal, it's a full-scale political earthquake. And as the truth unravels, so does the stability of an entire government. It all started with whispers, quiet murmurs in Westminster corridors, strange meetings behind closed doors, and documents that didn't add up. But tonight, those whispers became screams. The House of Commons, known for fierce debate, witnessed something far more dangerous: collapse. Keir Starmer, the man who promised clarity, integrity, and a new era after the Tory disasters, now stands accused of betraying the one red line no Prime Minister was supposed to cross: Brexit. For months, he told the public everything was settled, that Labour respected the will of the people, that Brexit was done, the chapter closed. But behind that carefully crafted mask, something else was happening. Secret meetings in Brussels, private briefings with EU negotiators, and what's most damning, a signed framework quietly outlining Britain's path back toward EU alignment. No debate, no vote, no transparency, just a cold signature on a document that rewrites the very future of the country. What did it include? It's worse than anyone imagined. Sources inside Parliament confirm the deal reopens trade negotiations and quietly reintroduces European standards across multiple industries: fishing, farming, transport. Even more shocking, it includes an oversight clause allowing European courts a say in British legal disputes involving cross-border issues. That's not cooperation, that's control, that's sovereignty surrendered under the table. When the documents leaked this morning, chaos wasn't a possibility, it was inevitable. Conservative MPs pounced. Reform UK went nuclear. But what stunned the country was what happened inside Labour. The rebellion began immediately. Shadow ministers who just yesterday were praising Starmer began distancing themselves. One senior MP, caught on a hot mic, said, "He's done. This isn't just a misstep, it's a betrayal of every red wall voter who trusted us." By midday, Parliament was a war zone. Anonymous leaks poured into the press. WhatsApp chats from Labour insiders revealed total panic. Phrases like political suicide, unforgivable, and the party's dead if this sticks filled the screens of stunned journalists. MPs who'd kept silent during scandals and crises could no longer defend him. They weren't just upset about the policy, they were furious they'd been lied to. Starmer didn't brief the shadow cabinet, he didn't consult party leadership, he didn't even warn them. He thought he could bury it. Instead, he buried his credibility, and the public, they erupted. Especially the communities that handed Labour its stunning 2024 comeback. Towns like Sunderland, Mansfield and Hartlepool that had voted Leave and believed Labour finally understood them. Now they feel stabbed in the back. Again. Social media exploded. Hashtags like hashtag Starmer betrayal and hashtag Brexit backstab surged to the top of every platform. Viral videos showed furious voters tearing up Labour posters, shouting outside constituency offices and vowing never to vote for the party again. Outside Parliament, protests formed within hours. What began as scattered groups by mid-afternoon turned into a roaring crowd. Union Jacks filled the square. Banners reading, "Democracy means leave," and "Starmer lied" lined the gates. Loud chants of "traitor" shook the walls of power. It wasn't just political anger, it was personal. These were people who felt cheated, used, and ignored again. Inside the Commons, the pressure mounted. Starmer tried to dismiss the leak as a misunderstanding, but that only fueled the fire. Tory backbenchers shouted him down. Reform's leader thundered that the people have been betrayed again by the elites. Even Speaker Hoyle struggled to control the mayhem. One MP described the atmosphere as pure fury, bottled inside a ticking clock. Then the unthinkable happened. A senior Labour MP, until now a close ally of Starmer, stood up and publicly called for a vote of no confidence. Gasps echoed through the chamber. This wasn't a Tory ambush. This was Labour cannibalising itself in front of the nation. And as MPs rose one by one to speak, some with trembling voices, others with cold determination, it became clear Keir Starmer's grip on power was slipping through his fingers. But here's what makes it worse. This wasn't just one deal gone wrong. This was a pattern. As details continued to emerge, it became clear this secret Brexit reversal wasn't a one-off misjudgment. It was part of a deliberate, long-running plan to move Britain back under EU influence without telling the public. Think tanks had been consulted, civil service departments quietly realigned. It was methodical, it was careful, and it was completely hidden from the people who mattered most, the voters. And now the country stands on a knife's edge. Starmer is wounded, the party is fracturing, and the people are watching, angrier than ever. What comes next could either be his desperate last stand or the final nail in his political coffin. Commons adjourned for the evening. It was no longer just about one secret deal. It had become a question of survival, not just for Keir Starmer, but for the entire Labour Party. Inside Westminster, the mood turned from disbelief to pure revolt. MPs weren't whispering anymore. They were shouting. The rebellion had begun, and it was spreading faster than anything the modern party has ever witnessed. What was once loyalty evaporated into rage, and what was once control shattered into chaos. The no confidence motion wasn't a fringe move. It didn't come from a lone backbencher trying to make headlines. It came from the heart of Labour itself. Within hours, signatures began flooding in. Shadow ministers, long-time loyalists, MPs who had fought tooth and nail to defend Starmer through every crisis, COVID fallout, NHS strikes, cost of living backlash, now turned on him with ice-cold fury. One insider described it like this: it was as if the party had been holding its breath for months, waiting for a reason to explode, and this deal was the match. Private WhatsApp groups inside Labour became war zones. Leaked screenshots showed phrases like, "He lied to us all. This is electoral suicide, Quay. And we go down with him or we cut him loose tonight." A senior MP even wrote, "I didn't come back to Parliament to help hand Britain back to the EU behind voters' backs." I'm out. Every corner of the party, from Blairites to Corbynites, began lining up, not out of unity, but out of raw survival instinct. One prominent figure put it bluntly, "This is the end unless he goes." And outside Westminster, the fire was spreading. News outlets were in overdrive. Emergency panels formed. Every hour, new bombshells dropped. More leaked memos, more proof that Starmer had been planning regulatory alignment with the EU for over a year. Specific industries were named agriculture, tech, energy. Quiet talks had already begun with European officials mapping out re-entry pathways into various sectors. One memo even discussed restoring harmonisation with Brussels over the next 3 parliamentary sessions. It wasn't just a deal. It was a blueprint for reintegration. The backlash was brutal. In red wall constituencies, the same places that had delivered Starmer his majority, fury turned into political mutiny. Local Labour associations began issuing their own public condemnations. Some councillors resigned in protest. In one viral video, a lifelong Labour voter in Stoke-on-Trent tore up his membership card on live radio, shouting, "He thinks we're stupid! We voted Leave for a reason, and now he's trying to undo it behind our backs." The pressure cooker inside Parliament was nearing explosion point. Senior Tories demanded Starmer resign immediately. Reform UK launched a national campaign calling for an emergency general election. And then the final blow landed: a full-scale parliamentary inquiry into the secret Brexit negotiations, initiated by cross-party MPs who accused Starmer of bypassing Parliament, deceiving the public and violating the ministerial code. For a sitting Prime Minister to be formally investigated while still in office is rare. For it to come from inside his own benches, unprecedented. Meanwhile, Starmer's own cabinet was tearing itself apart. Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves refused to appear on scheduled media interviews. Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper was seen leaving Parliament early, her face pale and lips tight. The traditional morning unity press briefings cancelled. Rehearsed talking points abandoned. The government wasn't just flailing, it was paralysed. And while Starmer tried to project calm, releasing a carefully worded statement calling the leak misinterpreted and taken out of context, the damage was already done. No one was buying it anymore. Not the press, not the public, not even his own MPs. A growing coalition inside Labour began discussing a caretaker transition. Names began circulating: Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, Lisa Nandy. Each one held private meetings with key union leaders, donors and local organisers. Each one quietly assembled teams. A Labour source confirmed everyone's acting like the leadership is already vacant. The only one who hasn't realised it yet is Starmer. Then came the press ambush. Outside Downing Street, a swarm of reporters waited. When Starmer finally emerged, the questions were shouted over one another. Did you lie to the public? Will you resign tonight? Did Brussels write your Brexit policy? He gave no answers, just walked briskly to his car, flanked by aides who looked like they were escorting a ghost. But behind the scenes, he was scrambling. Emergency calls with party chiefs, desperate attempts to whip loyalty back into line. But it was too late. Labour had tasted rebellion and they weren't going back. By late night, over 160 Labour MPs had signed the no confidence motion. Dozens more were expected by morning. If the vote was held now, Starmer wouldn't just lose, he'd be crushed. And Reform UK, they were already celebrating. Farage gave a fiery late-night broadcast declaring, "This is what happens when elites underestimate the people." Labour is finished. Britain is waking up. His words weren't just political theatre, they were reflected in the polls. Overnight, Reform surged 9 points. In battleground seats across the North and Midlands, they leapfrogged Labour. One pollster called it the fastest realignment we've ever recorded in a 24-hour period. As midnight struck, Westminster wasn't sleeping. Phones rang, plots thickened, and inside Parliament, one message echoed louder than all the others. Starmer is done. The hour after political collapse isn't silence, it's plotting. As the walls of Starmer's leadership crumbled, a dozen knives unsheathed in the shadows. This was no longer just about a secret Brexit betrayal. This was now a live battle for control of the Labour Party, a war unfolding minute by minute with rival camps moving like predators around a wounded leader. The throne was empty, even if the man in the chair refused to see it. And the ones who'd once cheered him on were now planning who would take his place. Not tomorrow, but tonight. The leadership race didn't begin with declarations. It began with whispers, phone calls placed under the cover of night, messages sent through trusted intermediaries, donors who once backed Starmer quietly shifting their loyalties, union bosses, the backbone of the Labour machine, receiving visits from MPs they hadn't spoken to in months. The question wasn't whether Starmer would survive. It was who would be ready the moment he fell. Angela Rayner's name shot to the top of every conversation. Once seen as the people's firebrand, her distance from the secret deal made her an immediate contender. She hadn't defended it, she hadn't been briefed, and that gave her credibility. By sunrise, multiple sources confirmed Rayner had assembled a provisional leadership team. Allies were in place, union support was being counted, and most importantly, her silence spoke volumes. In moments of collapse, saying nothing is sometimes the loudest move of all, but Rayner wasn't alone. Wes Streeting, polished, media savvy and centrist, began moving rapidly behind the scenes. His network within the party's business-friendly wing sprang into action. The line from his allies was clear. The public won't return to Labour unless we become the adults in the room again. That message, paired with a promise to restore calm after the Brexit betrayal, began resonating with MPs terrified of losing their seats to Reform UK. Streeting wasn't building a campaign, he was building an escape hatch, and many were preparing to climb aboard. Lisa Nandy, often underestimated, emerged as the third dark horse. With strong roots in the north and a reputation for straight-talking politics, she positioned herself as the bridge between Labour's fractured factions. While others circled the wreckage, Nandy made calls directly to Red Wall MPs, urging unity and promising to return Labour to its working-class foundations. One MP said, "Lisa didn't come to take power. She came to stop the bleeding, but in politics, that's sometimes all it takes to win." Meanwhile, Starmer sat surrounded by loyalists, or what remained of them. Reports to describe a tense scene inside his office, aides frantically fielding calls. Advisors torn between urging resignation or digging in for a final stand. Starmer himself remained outwardly composed, but insiders say the mask slipped several times. Snapping at staff, staring blankly at news screens, muttering that the party would come to its senses, but the truth was undeniable. The party was already gone, and the press, they tore him apart. Every paper, from the left-leaning Guardian to the right-wing Telegraph, ran front-page headlines declaring his government in collapse. Editorials skewered his arrogance, his secrecy, and worst of all, his belief that Brexit was an issue he could quietly rewrite without consequence. One columnist wrote, Starmer forgot the one rule of modern British politics: you don't lie to the people about Brexit and survive the week. Outside Labour HQ, the mood was just as volatile. Protesters swelled, flags waved, and chants of general election now grew louder. Videos of voters burning Labour manifestos flooded social media. Even some local Labour Party offices were vandalised with spray-painted slogans like Traitor Party and Brexit means leave. But these weren't fringe voices. These were the very people Labour needed to win the next election. And they were vanishing by the hour. Reformuk surged ahead, riding the chaos like a wave. Nigel Farage held another explosive press conference declaring, the mask has fallen, the people have been lied to, and we're here to clean house. His rhetoric landed hard, especially in Leave voting regions that now felt betrayed by every side. In a poll released just 24 hours after the leak, Reform overtook Labour in the North East. In some constituencies, they doubled their support. Farage smelled blood, and he wasn't the only one. The Conservatives, still battered by their own scandals, suddenly found themselves in an unexpected position of strength. Rishi Sunak, silent until now, released a cold statement. The British people deserve honesty. The Prime Minister has failed that test. Behind the scenes, Tory strategists began working overtime. Special advisers briefed MPs on the likelihood of a snap election. Funding requests were filed. And Tory candidates began preparing for a battlefield no one expected to be fighting this soon. But the most dangerous developments were still happening inside Labour itself. The factions were no longer whispering. They were fighting. Blairite centrists accused the left of dragging the party down. Corbyn-era holdouts blamed Starmer for abandoning the working class. MPs were pitted against each other. Some demanded a formal leadership election by week's end. Others pushed for an interim caretaker prime minister. One group even proposed calling a special party conference to completely reset the party's direction. Labour's unity, already strained, was obliterated. One senior Labour figure told reporters off the record, "We've crossed the event horizon. There's no pulling back from this. Either we replace Starmer immediately and salvage what's left, or Reform replaces us for good." And in all this chaos, the British people watched, an angry, betrayed, and more cynical than ever. For them, this wasn't just about Starmer, it was about trust. It was about the promise that when they vote, it matters. That when politicians speak, they tell the truth. And now, as that trust lies in ruins, a storm brews over Parliament, the likes of which this country hasn't seen in decades. The chamber was silent as the Speaker rose, every MP present, every eye fixed forward. And then, the numbers. Keir Starmer had lost. Not narrowly, decisively. The no confidence vote wasn't just a rejection. It was a political execution. Gasps filled the air. Some MPs wept. Others simply walked out, stone-faced. Starmer sat frozen, the weight of betrayal crushing every breath. Within minutes, news alerts exploded across Britain. Starmer out, Labour collapsed inward. Power bids ignited. Reform UK surged. The Tories circled. But this wasn't just Starmer's end. It was the death of public trust. The one truth now? Britain's political map has been torn in half, and what rises from the ruins could change the nation forever.